The airport lights flickered above me like a warning I didn't yet understand. A stranger in a janitor's uniform gripped my wrist with trembling fingers. "MILF, please listen to me carefully," he whispered, eyes darting toward my husband. "In 10 minutes, your husband will offer you a coffee. Pretend to drink it, and then watch what he does." My breath froze. His voice wasn't dramatic, it was terrified. "My name is Leah Mercer, and until that moment, I thought my life was finally settling into something soft and predictable. My husband, Ethan, had come home yesterday with 2 vacation packets, spinning me around like we were newlyweds again. A surprise trip, just us," he'd said, his smile wide and strangely tight. After months of distance, cold arguments, and secrets he swore I was imagining, I let myself believe him. I wanted to believe him. Now, standing between Gate 34 and a glowing departures board, my stomach knotted in a way no turbulence ever could. Ethan's back was turned as he checked our luggage, shoulders relaxed, humming, looking like the man I'd once trusted with everything. I swallowed hard. Why would a complete stranger warn me about my own husband? And more importantly, what was in that coffee Ethan was about to bring me? I kept glancing toward the restroom hallway, half expecting the cleaner to reappear and explain himself, but he was gone, vanished as if he'd never spoken. His warning rattled around in my head like loose screws in a collapsing machine. Pretend to drink it. Watch what he does. Ethan walked back toward me with 2 cups in his hands, smiling the same too-perfect smile he'd practiced in every anniversary photo. "Hazelnut latte for my girl," he said, pressing a kiss to my cheek. His lips felt colder than the airport AC. For the first time in our 7-year marriage, I hesitated before touching something he offered me. But this moment, it wasn't random. It was pressure that had been building for months. The late night, work emergencies. The sudden password changes on his devices. The distant look he wore even when I was sitting right beside him. And the worst, the credit card charges from places he claimed he'd never been. I'd confronted him once, gently. He laughed it off, hugged me, told me I was overthinking again. But the gut feeling remained, sharp as a splinter I couldn't remove. Now, as I wrapped my fingers around the warm paper cup, I felt the first crack of truth forming. If this coffee was part of something darker, I needed to know exactly what Ethan planned to do next. I lifted the cup to my lips, tilting it just enough to make it look convincing. The bitter steam touched my face, but I didn't taste a single drop. Ethan watched me, too closely. His eyes didn't soften the way they normally did when he gave me something. No playful smirk, no teasing comment. Just the anticipation. He wanted me to drink it. Badly. When I swallowed, he exhaled, almost relieved. Good. We have a long flight. You should get some rest before boarding." Rest? At 11 a.m.? A cold shiver crawled up my spine. "Actually," I said casually, "I'll grab some napkins." I walked toward a nearby counter, pretending to wipe my mouth just so I could discreetly spit the tiny bit that touched my tongue. My heart pounded so loudly it drowned out the airport announcements. When I turned back, Ethan was doing something on his phone. Not texting. Not scrolling. He was checking my pulse on the airline app. Passenger condition. Updated manually. My stomach dropped. Why would a spouse need to update a medical status unless he was expecting something to happen to me soon? I stepped closer, watching his thumb hover over an option. Notify medical staff upon boarding. He jerked when he realized I was behind him. "Ready to go?" he asked lightly. But his eyes, those eyes were hiding something I wasn't meant to survive long enough to see. The boarding line curled forward, passengers shuffling, children whining, wheels dragging. Ordinary sounds that suddenly felt like a countdown to something catastrophic. Ethan placed a gentle hand on the small of my back, guiding me forward like he always did. But now the touch felt calculated, rehearsed. When we reached the front, the gate agent scanned our passes. Ethan leaned in with false concern. "My wife isn't feeling well," he said softly. "She might need assistance once we're in the air." My blood iced. He was preparing witnesses. Crafting a narrative. The janitor's warning echoed again. pretend to drink it, and watch what your husband does. Well, I was watching. And every move he made pointed toward one truth. Ethan expected me to collapse. Inside the jet bridge, the air grew warmer, thicker. Ethan kept glancing at me with small, nervous smiles. Not loving, not supportive, checking if I was reacting yet. When we stepped onto the plane, he immediately spoke with a flight attendant. "She gets dizzy quickly," he said, voice dripping with worry. "If she passes out, just know she's very sensitive to caffeine." Caffeine? The latte I supposedly drank? My chest tightened. He was planting explanations before anything even happened. Then, as passengers settled and overhead bins slammed shut, Ethan leaned close to my ear. "I promise, Leah, this trip will change everything." His tone made my hands tremble. Not with fear, with realization. Whatever he planned, it was about to happen soon. For the first 20 minutes of the flight, I pretended to drift in and out of sleep. My head rested against the window, eyes half closed, breath shallow, just enough to make Ethan think whatever he'd put in that coffee was starting to work. He watched me like a scientist observing an experiment. Every blink, every shift of my shoulders, every fake, sluggish exhale. I let my body go limp. His posture straightened. He sat perfectly still, waiting. And in that stillness, I finally understood. He didn't want a divorce.
He didn't want therapy.
He wanted freedom, the kind that only comes when the other person stops existing. So I stayed quiet, letting him believe he was winning. Meanwhile, I pieced together every red flag I'd ignored. The sudden increase on my life insurance policy. The travel surprise he'd arranged himself. The fact that this trip was booked under his email only. The cleaner's terrified warning. How would he know unless he'd seen Ethan tampering with something? My fear began to harden into something else. Something sharper. If Ethan wanted to play smart, he had no idea who he was up against. I opened my eyes just a little, enough to watch him remove something from his pocket. A tiny vial. Clear. Unlabeled. He checked to see if I was asleep. I let my head sink deeper into the seat. And in that moment, a calm, calculating thought slid into place. If he wants me gone, I'll make sure he's the one who loses everything. Ethan waited until the flight attendants began rolling the drink cart down the aisle. Perfect cover, noise, movement, distractions. He slipped the vial between his fingers like a magician preparing a trick. I kept my breathing slow, heavy, convincing. When the attendant reached us, Ethan flashed his most charming smile. "Can my wife get some water? She's feeling faint." The attendant nodded sympathetically and handed him a small plastic cup. That was his moment. He angled his body, blocking the aisle view, and tilted the vial over the cup. A single clear drop slid into the water, invisible. If I hadn't known, I never would have seen it. He offered me the cup. "Baby, drink this. It'll help." My fingers brushed the rim, steady, obedient, but inside, electricity surged through me. I knew I couldn't expose him yet. Not here, not midair. I needed evidence, witnesses, timing. Revenge wasn't just survival, it needed precision. So I fumbled. The cup slipped from my hand, splashing onto the floor. Ethan jolted. Too quickly. Too desperate.
"Oh."
"Let me get you another." "No," I whispered, pretending to sway. "I just need to lie down." His relief was instant. He thought the drug was working.
Good.
Let him think that. Because when he leaned over me, checking my pulse again, I quietly slid my phone under the seat, recording. His words, his actions, his vial, all of it. He didn't notice. He was too busy watching me fade. And that was his fatal mistake. Ethan relaxed completely once he believed I was slipping into unconsciousness. His shoulders dropped, his breathing steadied, and the panic he'd been hiding melted into something far uglier, satisfaction. He whispered under his breath, not realizing my phone beneath the seat was catching every word. "Finally, everything will go back to normal." Normal? Without me? He rehearsed the story he planned to tell investigators. "She drank too fast. She said she felt dizzy. I tried helping, A perfect grieving husband performance. The plane hit mild turbulence, and I let my head roll against his arm. He froze, then carefully laid me against the seat, as though positioning a body. A chill crawled through my veins, but not from fear anymore. From clarity. When we landed, he'd expect me immobile,
Silent.
helpless, which meant that the moment those wheels touched the runway, every second would matter. As the descent began, flight attendants took their seats. Ethan pulled out the airline app again, marking passenger condition worsening. The evidence on my phone was damning already. But I wasn't done. I needed him to admit one thing: motive. So, just as we started our final approach, I let my voice slip out in a weak whisper. "Ethan, why?" His head snapped toward me, eyes wide. He thought I was nearly gone. And people confess their darkest truths when they think no one will ever hear them. He swallowed, leaning close to my ear. "Because, Leah, you were standing in the way." When the plane touched down, the cabin jolted, and so did I. Not dramatically, just enough for Ethan to believe it was my last flicker. He pressed the call button immediately. "My wife, she's not responsive," he shouted, perfectly on cue. Passengers turned. Flight attendants hurried over. And I let it happen. I let him perform. Because in exactly 30 seconds, his world would detonate. As attendants checked my vitals, I opened my eyes slowly, not weakly, but aware. Ethan's face drained of color. "Leah?" he whispered, like a man seeing a ghost of the woman he tried to kill. I reached under my seat, pulled out my phone, and tapped the saved recording. His voice filled the cabin. Every whisper, every lie, every step of his plan. The flight attendants froze. Passengers gasped. Ethan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then came the final blow, a screenshot I'd queued from his insurance email. A policy change dated 2 weeks ago. Cause of claim: accidental death during travel. The attendants signaled the pilot. Security was waiting at the gate. Ethan was escorted off the plane shaking, still pleading, still unraveling. As for me, I walked off behind him, steady, alive, and done being his victim. The janitor's warning had saved my life. My own revenge had destroyed his. And the sweetest twist? The vacation he planned for my end became the start of my new beginning, without him, without fear, and with the power he never thought I had.